It's time for that guy that does the things. All right. How's it going? Oh, you want me to say the thing? Okay. Deconverted man here. Oh, what? That wasn't enough energy? All right. Hold on. Let me try to get. Deconverted man here. Better? Okay. Questions. NextGen Apologetics has questions for atheists. All right. Well, I'm a atheist, so I can answer some of these questions. Let's check it out. All right. Here you go. Okay. So all right. Yeah, let's get. Okay. Here we go.
Section below. Now, first, before we get started, I just have a request that you are charitable and kind.
You foolish human. Oh, you fool. Let me type something here. All right. I've got my comment ready. Yeah, I don't believe in God because you're stupid, and I hope all the churches get burned down to the ground. And if I had a time machine, I'd go back and kill Jesus myself. Wait, hold on. Let me see what he has to say here.
Now, I know there's probably going to be someone who uses this opportunity to hop in the comment section and say, yeah, I don't believe in God because you're stupid, and I hope all the churches get burned to the ground. And if I had a time machine, I'd personally kill Jesus. Like there could be.
He thought of that. I guess I can't post that comment now.
Some very vile, nasty comments. Please do not do that.
Oh, all right.
This is a genuine invitation where I want to hear what you have to say. So please do not waste that invitation.
Oh, okay.
You have someone who's inquiring about what you believe and why.
All right.
And I'd hope that if I'm genuine in my invitation, that you are genuine in your response.
I mean, yeah, I will be, but I mean, I was just having a little fun there,
So, the first question is, do you believe that God's existence is possible? Why or why not?
Okay, well, what is God would be my question. And I'm not saying that to be disingenuous. I'm being very serious. I don't know what you mean by God. I don't know what anyone means by God until they tell me what they mean by God. God is a vague term that is utilized by many different cultures and religions across the world. And different versions of it, like Kami-sama. This is a spirit king or queen. So Kami is a spirit in Japan. And so you have Kami-sama, and that's God. Although it's not called God, because it's called Kami-sama. But we translate it to God. So is that God? You've got Shiva the Destroyer. Is that God? You've got Allah. Is that God? You've got Yahweh. You've got, the lobsterist God, which is Laud. You've got all these different God concepts that are around, and I don't know. But I would say that any God concept that is tied to something that is not true in reality could not be true. So if your God concept requires you to deny the age of the earth, the age of the universe, biological evolution, or any other facts that we know to be true, thanks to the methods of science, then that God cannot be real. It'd be akin to saying that 1 + 1 is 1,000,000, therefore your God is real. Well, 1 + 1 is not 1,000,000, so your God cannot be real. So any God concept that ties its existence to denial of reality is not and cannot be true by virtue of logic. I'd also say that concepts of God that are logically incoherent could not exist. So if you propose that your God is all logical, but then your God then does a logical fallacy, then that is a contradiction, and that God cannot exist in the format that you presented it as. It cannot be an all logical being. So you must have had that wrong about God. Thus, that version of God isn't true. So any gods that have concepts that are contradictory in nature and or deny reality cannot possibly be true. Other versions could be depending on what you propose that God is.
So I guess this question is more like, are you heavily hardline atheist, or are you like atheist sort of leaning agnostic? What do I mean by that? There's some people who believe there is no God and there's no chance that I'm wrong. Like, God,
Well, again, when it comes to God, it depends on what your version of God is. There is no God that is logically a paradox. Uh, how did I find this? A friend sent it by email. I was going to type that, and I realized I'm talking. I don't need to type if I'm talking. I don't know. So Nitty asked, how do I find it? All right. So yeah. So logically paradoxical God is not a thing. So that I would say that God doesn't exist and can't exist. Um, Other God concepts, maybe they could exist. It just depends.
isn't real and there's 0% chance that I'm wrong. But there are some people say, no, I don't believe God's real. I don't believe in a God, but or like I don't believe that God exists, but I could be wrong. I could see myself being wrong if I had enough evidence. Something like that. So
Yeah, if there was any evidence of any God, then I wouldn't need to believe I could know that it was true because I would have the evidence to show that it was true. But there isn't evidence for a God. There are only arguments for a God, and these arguments, I've examined them, and they all have logical fallacies. Now, there could be an argument that I'm unaware of that is free of logical fallacies, but so far, I haven't found it yet.
do you believe that God's existence is possible? Why or why not? Second question. If it were proven to you that Christianity were true, would you be a Christian? Why or why not?
This one. Um, well, it depends on what Christianity is, in fact, because there's what I think Christianity is, there's what you think Christianity is, and then there's whatever Christianity would turn out to be the case. What does that even look like? I don't know. Because be, we are forced to interpret words that are written. We have no choice in that matter. This is now natural language functions. And we have to acknowledge the fact that the Bible has had many revisions over time. Now, you can say, oh, there's small revisions. It doesn't matter. It's had revisions over time. And it's been translated from a different language. You have to take that into account. So, unless you learn that other language and you become proficient in it, uh, and then there's the Bible Christianity, and then whatever the original Christianity looked like. When it first was around, how do we know what that would look like? Who knows? You'd have to, uh, well, you mentioned time machine. You'd have to go back in time and find out what Christ really said, if he said anything at all. What if he went back in time and there wasn't a Jesus? There was just some dude that decided to make up a story about Jesus and start telling it to other people, and they believed him. And eventually that got written down. How the bleep do I know? So I don't know what Christianity is. And so given that, I can't really honestly answer that. My perception of it is one that is an immoral system that is repugnant and full of logical fallacies, inconsistencies, bad ethics and morals, bizarre teachings, inconsistent teachings, statements that are just b- very questionable in nature, like Jesus says, don't worry about washing your hands. Now, you can take that to mean, whatever you want, but that's what he said. Don't worry about it. Worry about what comes out of your mouth, not what goes in your mouth. It's like, what is that supposed to mean? I mean, you don't know about germs? Come on, man. That's bad advice. Uh, so my perception could be wrong, though. That's not Christianity. Christianity is what? Do unto others as they do unto you. That's the only law to follow, even though Jesus said follow all the laws. Hey, that's the law now. Okay, that's also a bad way of doing things, because the way that I want to be treated is not necessarily the way that B.S. Lewis wants to be treated. So I should treat others the way that they want to be treated, not how I want to be treated. So, this is just bad advice. But that's my version of how I understand Christianity. And I used to be a Christian, but then I took a logic to the knee, and now I'm a skeptic. So, given what I know about Christianity, saying that it was true, I don't know what that even looks like, because I don't know what the quote unquote true Christianity would be. I only know my perception of it, and that is after a lot of study and critical thinking on the matter and looking into the matter and finding that there was no support of it. But this is essentially asking, well, what if it's all true? What if there's a God and that's real? And the only way to get into heaven is to tell Jesus, is to say you believe in Jesus, and that he died for your sins. Um, well, you wouldn't need to believe that if it was evidently true. So that would kind of remove the requirement of belief. You would just say, yeah, of course that's true. So I wouldn't need to join Christianity to be saved. I would just acknowledge the truth of it. If this means join it as in pray to Jesus and worship God, that's not necessarily a requirement. So again, I don't know what it means for Christianity to be true. But this is one of those questions that Christians sometimes ask, and it is, although you are perhaps being genuine with it, others have used it as a gotcha to say, oh, the atheists, they say no, ha ha ha. That even if they had proof, they wouldn't join it. Well, yeah. If it turns out that Hitler is God, would you worship Hitler? Now, that's a very fair question. Hitler is God. It turns out that that's the reality. Would you worship Hitler? I wouldn't, but that's me. Now, well, there's consequences for that. Okay. I guess, I have to do what I believe in. Would you do it because you didn't want the punishment that Hitler is going to bestow upon you? Maybe. But, I would hope that I'd have the fortitude to say no to it, because I don't want to worship a moral monster. And Yahweh, as I perceive it, is a moral monster. So I don't want anything to do with it. But again, all of that is my perception of Christianity, and that could be wrong. So that's an answer to your question, as best as I can give it.
So let's say I sat you down with a magic book of proof and it answered all your objections, it gave you all the evidence and proof you needed. Would you be a Christian? Would you look at that and go, I'm going to follow Jesus? Or would you not? Would you not? Would you look at that and say, well, the Christian God's the real God, I'm not going to follow him? Why or why not? Third question, do you believe in objective morality? Now, objective morality is simply the idea that there is a universal moral law that exists that is unchanging and that like doesn't change no matter what people think, what the masses say, what popular opinion is. There's an unchanging right and wrong. Like that's kind of transcendent in a sense. So, do you believe in objective morality? If you believe in objective morality, where does it come from?
All right. So, given the definition you've provided, no. There is no one thing that is transcendent. And if there was something, we wouldn't know anything about it. We wouldn't know. We couldn't know. Uh, because there'd be no way to know unless there was a way to know. And so let's say that killing puppies by stomping them to death with a giant boot is the moral thing to do. In fact, it's the most moral thing one could do because screw puppies and dogs in general. Die, dogs! And sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I hate dogs. So if that's true, regardless of your feelings, that's just the truth. Well, how would you know? It's written in a book. That's not good enough. Is some god said it? Well, why does God get to decide? So is it written in the stars? Is it coded into our DNA? How would we identify it in the first place? So that's a big problem of objective morals, and also you would have to have, if you have objective moral, then you'd have to have objective ethics, which is the thing that is your guideline for your morals. So you can't just not have ethics. You would have to have ethics. Now, I have a book called Logic and Morals and Logic. Logic and Morals? Morals and Logic. One of those things. I don't even know the name of my own book right now. That's what I get for naming my books weird. Let me check my own books. Logic and Morals. There we go. Okay, I have a book called Logic and Morals. And I made an argument for morals tied to logic. And so you start with a very simple premise, and all the premises are true, and the conclusion has to follow. So using that logical argument, you now have an ethical system based on a something that I can show to be objectively true. So does that make that ethical system objective in nature? To some degree, but you still have to pick the first thing. You still have to say that that first thing is valuable. And although I can demonstrate that that first thing is valuable to humans, you could decide not to do it anyways. So ultimately, your ethical selection is going to be subjective to some degree. So whether you use my moral framework as outlined by my book, and if you're wondering why I don't give you the argument, well, obviously, because I want you to buy my book, or you could watch the review of my book that's on Answers an Atheist, and I believe Captive Desk also streamed it. One of those two channels. I'll link it in the pinned comment in the description. Because we do outline the argument in there, although it takes us time to do so. But at any rate, you even if it's God, you've selected your God, so that's still subjective ethics. Now, there are problems with DCT, divine command theory, which is the ethical system where you say God says to do X, and that makes X correct, in that, well, first of all, you don't know that God is said to do that, but secondly, just God saying that it's right or wrong, what makes it right or wrong? Because God said it. Okay, but what makes it true? Is it independent of God? Then you don't need God. And if it's not independent of God, then it is subject to God's whims, making it subjective. So ultimately, morals could be looked at as objective, but not under your definition, under a different definition, in that if we look at objective being they have a set goal, then your morals have a set goal depending on your ethical system. Let's say utilitarianism, the most good for the most people, the least harm to the least amount of people. So the classic trolley problem, you switch the track to hit the one person versus the five because you're saving more than few. Um, okay, so that's, but if you found yourself in that reality, you'd maybe try to wiggle the lever back and forth really fast to derail the trolley. And doing so might kill you, but it would save all of the other people. So that's a good value, perhaps. But maybe you don't want to die. So, it gets rather tricky in real life. Even something you think, well, torturing babies for fun. Yeah, well, if your God tells you to do it, then is it good to do? Well, God said to do it, so it must be good if God is good. And what are you supposed to do then? So you have to be able to show that they are objective before you state that they are. Just believing is not good enough. We need evidence for this idea to be true. But it seems, as I have outlined, that although morals, in one sense, do have a goal in your ethical system, the way to get to that goal is going to be different every time. That's subjective. The ethical system itself is selected subjectively because it's the one that attracts you the most, the one that you understand the best, the one that you think fits you the best, and so on and so forth. And there is a list of ethical systems, so you can go and check that out. And there's a lot to choose from. So I try not to believe in things. I try to know if things are true or not. So I don't have this belief because I have no evidence that morals are objective. And then asking where they come from is a loaded question because it assumes they come from somewhere. If they could be part of the nature of the universe and thus not come from anywhere. So that's a loaded question. I would reject that question because of the framing. And how do I determine right and wrong? Well, by using the ethical system that I've outlined in logic and morals on top of utilitarian logic and with some duty to the truth sprinkled in for good measure. That's how I determine right or wrong.
Who determines right and wrong in that sense? Like if there's a universal law, universal moral law, how did that moral law get there? But if you don't believe in objective morality, how do you determine right and wrong? If you don't think that there is an objective moral law, how do you determine if an action is right or wrong? What's your metric and what's your standard? Now, final question.
One more thing on this. Uh, uh, the movie Short Circuit. Okay, I did a video called the meta ethics of it, and I was going to do a part two, but not enough people commented. Johnny or number 5 is a robot that comes to life and realizes death is permanent. He is told this, and he has an existential crisis about being dismantled because that's dead and there's no coming back from it, and he doesn't want to die. And he finally meets his creator, Newton Crosby. They have a conversation, and he said, why Newton asks him, why did you ignore your programming? And number 5 says, it says to kill. That's wrong. He's like, don't you know that? And Newton Crosby, PhD, says, of course I know it, but who told you? And number 5 says, I told me. So there you go. There's another answer to that question.
Is what do you do with your guilt?
What? That's a weird one. When you what? Huh? Okay, I got what?
What do you do with your guilt? When you experience guilt, what do you do with it? I know for me as a Christian, when I have guilt that bears on me because I messed up, I did something wrong, whether it's in the moment or years past, I'm able to go, hey, like Jesus paid the price for my sins. So that guilt doesn't have to weigh on me. It doesn't.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, if I have wronged somebody deliberately and I can tell them I'm sorry and I can make up for it in some way, shape, or form, then I would do so. If this is something that's in the past, there's nothing I can do about it. It's in the past. And all I can do is acknowledge that I made that mistake and that I've learned from that and that I can change and move forward to be a better person than I was in the past. I've made plenty of bad decisions in the past, and there's nothing I can do to make up to the people that are harmed with those decisions. Not a thing. They're in the past. I can't do anything. And if I brought it up now, well, it's been so many years, it's kind of like digging up an old wound, you know. In a way, it's like maybe it's better to say nothing than to say sorry now. After all these years, it's kind of like too late, too little, too late. And what is sorry going to do for them? Is that really going to make them feel better? All I can do is be the best me I know how to be moving forward. I cannot undo what has been, but I can, from this point moving forward, be a better person and not make those mistakes again. And that's it. And maybe I feel bad occasionally, and that reminds me not to do the bad thing. And there you go. It's I guess you could say self forgiveness. But what I don't do is think that, well, if I ask God to forgive me, then it's fine. Because, in many ways, it seems that that is a way to excuse yourself from actually making up for the wrongs. In a way. Now, maybe you don't look like at it that way. Maybe if you wrong somebody, you would go out of your way to fix that. Maybe. But I fear that this is all too easy to be I stepped on someone's foot. I'm sorry, Jesus. And it's like, I don't have to apologize to them because I told Jesus I was sorry. I told God I was sorry. And God forgives me. So I don't need to ask them for forgiveness. I don't need to make it up to them. I have seen that manifest in some Christians. Now maybe you're not that way, but it doesn't spell it out for you in the Bible that it's not good enough to just ask for forgiveness or know that Jesus died for your sins. You need to go out of your way to undo the wrong that you've done. It doesn't explicitly say that in the Bible, unless I missed that bit. So, yeah, you can interpret this and that to get there, but it doesn't just spell it out for you. And I would think that a book that is attempting to give you morals and ethics would do that, would be very explicit in instruction of how to undo wrongs that you've done. But I don't need to dwell on guilt in this way. And so what I do with it is recognize that happened. I did it. How can I fix myself so I don't do that again? Because I recognize that that was in error. Yeah, that's the answer.
Because the punishment I deserve was taken by Jesus on the cross. But if you're an atheist, what do you do with your guilt? Do you just hold on to it? Do you bear it? Do you try to atone for it? Do you shove it down? Just what do you do with it? And thank you. Thank you for watching.
Okay. All right. Well, I answered all your questions. And now It's your turn. Dun, dun, dun. I made this video. I spent a long time answering your questions. I didn't put it in text because I wanted to do it live. Had to mute myself because I'm still, I was sick, and now it's the final coughs, I think, from it. So I didn't want to cough in the microphone. Here we go again. Cough in the microphone and clear my throat. Okay. Now it's your turn. What is God made out of? Where is God located? How does God's mind operate? Where is Jesus located right now if he has a physical body? And how does that work? What is a soul and or a spirit, and how do they function, and where are they located? What are they made out of? Where does God's power come from? How does its power work, mechanically speaking? What does God look like? What does Jesus look like? What does the Holy Spirit look like? Are they all the same thing, or are they separate individuals? Are there three gods or one God? How does that work? Why did God choose a small, tiny place on the planet for a limited amount of time to reveal itself to humanity in a way that would be mistaken for any other man-made religion? You might object to that being somewhat of a loaded question. Fair enough. Unpack it, unload it, and answer it as you desire. What evidence is there that shows what parts of the Bible are true? Where is that evidence located? When, where, and how was each part of the Bible transcripts found? That is to say, where was, say, the book of Daniel found? By whom and when? How did canon get decided, and by whom and when and where? What was the methodology used? Why are there books missing from the Protestant Bible that are included in the Catholic Bible? And who decided what those changes would be, when and why, and what was their methodology? Who wrote any part of any bit of the Bible, and how do you know this? What archaeological evidence is there to support any of the Bible? I might have asked that question already. What about the missing books of the Bible that are referenced? What happened to them? Where are they located? Why haven't we found them? Could they contain important information that we need to know about? If you don't know what I'm talking about, then why don't you know that? Do you have the entire Bible memorized? Do you assume and or assert that the Bible is the most important book in the world? And if so, if you answer no to the first question, how do you justify that you don't know everything there's to know about the Bible? Do you know the languages of the Bible that it was originally written in? If not, why not? Do you know the publisher of the Bibles that you own? If not, why not? Do you know the various changes that have been made about the Bible? And if not, why not? Do you know the history of your own religion? Have you studied it? Have you explored it? Have you seen if it has any evidence to back any of it? Or have you merely looked at apologetic web pages to determine that you must be right because they agree with you? Have you tried to disprove your ideas? Have you explored them in full with skepticism and scrutiny, not relying on those that agree with you, but instead looking at those who do not? Have you learned informal logic? If not, why not? And last but not least, have you read The Lobsterist? Come on, people, read The Lobsterist. Oh, why has nobody read this thing? Okay, Captive Desk read it on his channel. All right, and he now believes. Okay, but you haven't, so why not? And also, finally, no, wait, there was one more question. Will you take my challenge? And I'll post the link to the challenge below. And if not, I look for why not. So that could be like an additional answer. And that was way more questions than you asked. But I'm not fair because I'm a skeptic. All right. Thanks for listening and watching. And if you want to answer this guy's questions in text or your own video, please do so. And let's make sure not to tell him that we would go back in time and kill Jesus. No, if I had a time machine, I'd go back in time to verify that Jesus existed and record whatever happened with a video camera so that we would have the facts. And then I'd go kill baby Hitler because, I mean, of course, it's Hitler, I mean, that's like the only time you'd be justified in killing a baby. I'd be like, boot kick him out the window like a football. Boop, splat. And you might be like, hey, why not wait a while? No, kill him when he's a baby. That's more fun. I was joking about that. Yeah. Anyways, all right. Until next time, be skeptical. And after next time, stay skeptical. Meow, meow, meow. Meow, meow, meow. Meow, meow, meow. All right. Okay. That's it. Later.